A very warm welcome to Connection Worship Online. Chwanion Hamnida, Croeso Cynnes i gyd. Whether you are watching on the YouTube channel or whether you are using the phone sermon facility, it's great to have you with us today. Welcome. My name is Paul Smethurst. I'm the pastor here at Hope Gobaith Baptist Church in Llanelli. And I'd like to invite you to stay with us at the end of this broadcast for the gathering online. We use Zoom, and the details as to how you can connect will be on the screen immediately after this broadcast. Also, during the week ahead, please do join with us. The details of all our activities are on our diary, and as always, that diary is available for you on the Hope Gobaith webpage or the Facebook page. It'd be great to have you with us. Earlier this month in the Seren Cymru, Judith Morris, our General Secretary of the Baptist Union of Wales, wrote an article, and it was entitled Cymerwch Ho, Take a Rest. She was encouraging us over this month of August, after the busyness for many and the challenges of the past few months, to take time out before we restart in September into that new situation that we will find ourselves in. And so today I want us to think a little bit in preparation for the month ahead about the theme of rest. We're going to begin at the beginning, and we're going to listen to some words from Genesis 1 and 2 where we hear of God's creation and him giving us the seventh day as the day of rest. Let's listen, shall we?
Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Then he looked over all that he had made, and he saw that it was very good. And evening passed, and the morning came, marking the sixth day. So the creation of the heavens and the earth and everything in them was completed. And on the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation. So he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because it was the day when he rested from all of his work of creation.
And so we see from our reading that God sets us the example of rest. And after 6 days of creating, on the seventh, he rests. Then he also expects us, as the people he has created, also with him to share in that rest. And one day in 7 to actually rest from our work. Rest is a wonderful gift that God gives to us. But for us today, and as we think of Judith's encouragement and look to the month of August, what can we actually learn about the rest that God is inviting us into? Let's think about that, shall we? And so we've seen from Genesis that God sets the example as creator one day in 7 to rest. And he also declares his expectation that we, as his created people, one day in 7 will also rest. But what's the difference between God's rest and ours? Is there a difference? First thing that I want to say in answer to that question is this. For God, rest comes when he finished his work. But for us, rest comes before we start work. Think about it. God for 6 days created the heaven and earth and you and me and all that's in it. And then on day 7 he rested. On the 7th day God had finished his creation, we are told. But for us, humanity was created on day 6, and their role was given to them by God, and their job description was given. And then on day 7, the first full day that they were alive, what did they do? They rested. Before they started work, humanity had a day to rest, to prepare them for the role that they were going to fulfill as servants of God. Have you ever been given a gift A gift that is overwhelming, unexpected and undeserved. And your response to the giver is, what can I do in response to this? What can I do to earn this? And the giver simply says to you, no, it's a gift. It's a gift to you. You don't need to do anything. And there's a sense where that illustrates to us the gift that God has given to you and to me in rest. It's not earned, it's something that God has given to us freely because he loves us. It's a gift. And here to humanity, right at the beginning, the first thing that they did before they started serving God in the work that he'd given them to do, they rested with God. The second thing is this, that for God, rest is a choice. But for us as human beings, rest is a need. We're told and we've heard, so God rested from all his work. That sort of gives us the idea that after 6 days of hard work, God took the seventh one off to rest and recuperate and to recharge his batteries. But we know that God has no need of that. He could work 7 days in 7, 365 days in a year and still be no more diminished in energy or strength than he was at the beginning. For God, it was a choice to rest, but for us, it's a necessity. We need it. That 1 day in 7 rest, we need it as human beings to function properly. I'm fascinated by hybrid cars that work with both a petrol engine and an electric engine. And I was intrigued to know how the batteries that power the electric side of the car are recharged. And I was amazed to discover that those batteries in the cars recharge when the car slows down. If the car does not slow down, the batteries will never ever be recharged. And God has built that into us as human beings. It is only when we slow down that we are recharged, we are renewed. For us, rest is a need, whereas for God, it's a choice. Third thing is this, that for God, rest is a promise, but for us, it's a trust. What do I mean by that? I've been talking to a number of folk over these last few weeks who have been shielding during this time of lockdown and who have not been out for many, many weeks. And one after the other, they have described for me the fact that though they haven't been shopping, though they haven't been out, every single one of their needs has been supplied, they've been provided for. And the reason for that is because there are those around who care enough about them, who recognise their need to actually provide what they need for them, even when they themselves cannot do anything. And that's what I mean by the fact that for God, rest is a promise, but for us it's a trust. God says rest. 1 day in 7, 1 year in 7, 1 year in 50. Just imagine on that 1 year in 7 as a farmer, you weren't allowed to farm. How would you eat? God says, don't worry. Whilst you are resting and the land is resting, I will provide for your needs. For I'm committed. I love you. So whether it be the 1 day in 7 rest, or the 1 day in 7 years, or the 1 year in 50 years, God's commitment was to provide out of love for his people whilst they were resting. God's like that. As we take that 1 day in 7 to rest, God is committed to provide for us, to watch over those things that concern us. He's committed to that. And the final thing is that for God, rest is a command, but for us, it's a commitment. God declared the 7th day holy. He set it apart, he separated it from the rest and said no work. So, 1 day in every 7 we stop from our normal work and rest. But for 6 days in every 7 we fulfill God's calling on our lives. We serve him with all of our hearts. And here we see it in this lovely picture. That God commands us. He doesn't suggest, he tells us that we are to take 1 in 7 to rest. And as we do that, we are saying to the Lord, Lord, I'm committed to you on this day when I rest. But Lord, today I'm saying to you, I'm committed to you for the next 6 days to serve you with all of my heart and all of my strength in the context that you place me in. There's a wonderful part of the story of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And Father Christmas arrives in Narnia and the big freeze begins to melt. And Father Christmas brings to the children presents, gifts. And after he has given to each of the 3 children their presents, their gifts, he says to them this: these are tools, not toys. Bear them well. And in a sense, God is saying to us in gifting us with the Sabbath, this is a tool, not a toy. This is something that I'm giving you to enjoy and be blessed by, but I'm giving it to you so that you can use this rest to serve me for the next 6 days. For God, rest is a command, but for us, it's a commitment. So how does it work out practically? What does it look like to live a life of rest? Let's hear some words Jesus actually spoke about rest to his followers.
Dewch ata I, bawb sy'n cael ei llethu gan feichiau trwm ar ôl fy orffwys I chi. Dewch gyda mi o dan fy iau mwyn I chi ddysgu gen I. Dwi'n addfaen ac ostyngedig a chewch I orffwys. Mae fy iau I yn gyfforddus a dwi ddim yn gosod beichiau trwm.
So what are the practicalities that Jesus here teaches us about finding rest? The first one is this, that rest is from God. Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens. We find our rest when we come to God. And to come to God on that 1 day in 7 means that we leave behind those heavy burdens and those things that have wearied us in the past 6 days, to stop and to find our rest in him. It's something that we find in God. Do you know, the psalmist recognised that. And he says in Psalm 62, find rest, O my soul, in God alone. Rest is found when we come to God, and that 1 day in 7 is an opportunity to come and in a particular way give ourselves to God and to spending time in his presence in a particular way and finding that rest. The second thing is that it's a gift. We've already thought about this. Jesus says, I will give you rest. And he provides it because of his grace. But it reminds us here also that that gift is not just physical rest, but it's an inner rest. It's a rest that actually touches our core. We've discovered today in the area of physical fitness that core strength is actually one of the keys to endurance. And here we see that Jesus offers us core strength. He says that I will give you rest and you will find rest for your soul, for your core, for your innermost being. And it's as we rest that we are strengthened in the very innermost being. Paul actually reminds us that we are strengthened in the inner man by God's power. And as we take time on that 1 day in 7, he can strengthen us in the very centre of our being. And then the third principle is that that rest is good. It's a good fit. Take my yoke upon you, Jesus says. The culture that Jesus lived in was an agricultural context, and people would have been familiar seeing teams of oxen, 2 oxen joined together by a wooden construction called a yoke. And sometimes those yokes were ill-fitting on the oxen. And if they were ill-fitting, the oxen could not work efficiently and effectively. They had to be made specifically for each oxen. Another oxen's yoke would not do. It needed to be specific. And here's the thing. God wants the yoke that we bear to be fashioned by him specifically for us. And on that one day in 7, it gives us an opportunity to readjust or allow God to readjust the yoke. So that the things that we've taken on board from others in the past weeks, demands that they are making of us that are not demands that God has made of us, to be able to take them off. Demands that sometimes we make on ourselves that are completely unwarranted and God hasn't asked of us. God says, readjust. Take my yoke on you. Live with my calling. Live with what I want you to do. Allow me to readjust your life and your expectations and your perceptions as you reflect. Because, Jesus says, my yoke is easy to bear. It fits you perfectly. And the final thing is that one day in 7 of rest is an opportunity for us to get ready to go again in the 6 days that are in front of us. Jesus says, let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle of heart, and the burden that I give you is light. Jesus wants us in that day of rest to rediscover and refocus on his calling for our lives, knowing what he is wanting of us, and then to be able to go into the week ahead with a renewed sense of calling and purpose. And notice what Jesus says, the burden I give you, my yoke. You see, the wonderful thing is that when we fulfill the calling of God on our lives, we don't just live in our own strength. We live with God in his strength, because our calling is to partner with him in the world, serving him in whatever way he calls us to join with him in serving. Find rest in God alone. And so today, as we have heard God's invitation to rest, please feel free to either quietly read or openly say the words of this Sabbath blessing. Thank you ever so much for joining with us this morning. It's been great to be with you. Please do join with us for the gathering online. Look forward to seeing many of you. The details will be on the screen as to how you can do that immediately at the end of this broadcast. But as we come to a close for today and look forward to the week ahead, let us, shall we, hear and receive these words from the Lord. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favour, and may he give you his peace. Amen.